Well, guys, the holster seemed to work out decent yesterday while I was attempting to install the alarm on the van. I did notice one thing, so I made a small change. First of all, I cut off the belt loops. Everything's in reverse. Oh, I'm so confused. I don't know my right from my left. Well, that's because this is my left and this was my right. But I did notice every now and then when I was bending over, the gun would kind of just, even though it's tight, the bottom would just flop a little bit. So I added this little strap right here. Now that's not a permanent fixture, it's just there to see how it's going to work. But it also helped, as you can tell, in this. So, other than that, I didn't have any serious problems with it. The shoulder strap didn't fall off or anything. It felt like it was loose at times when I was in certain spots, but as soon as I stood up, it went right to where it's supposed to be. So far, I'm going to wear it again today, and I'm going to try to finish the alarm, because yesterday I started, and then these two wires right here decided to, well, you're not seeing these two wires, so hold on a minute. These two wires right here on the alarm had decided to wanted to pair up. So it says in the book that connect these two wires together on 12 volts, constant. So what I had done, instead of, these are like 12 gauge wire, they're not super heavy, but they're heavy. So what I had done, I decided to go through the firewall and run a number 4 gauge. Now I've got some 4 gauge Superflex, like monster cable. It's got like 18,000 strands or something to it. The more strands, the more flexible it is. All right, it's almost like a welding cable, and it's 4 gauge. So I ran a red, it's red in color, 4 gauge wire through the firewall, which means now I had to fuse it at the battery and such like that. So now once I get it into the vehicle, what do I do with it? I just don't want to start tying things together, so I decided, well, let me get a fuse box, which I had a 14 fuse and I had a 6 fuse. Well, the 6 fuse is a brand new one that I bought for another project, so I didn't really want to use that one. So what I did was I took the 14 and I cut it, and I made 2 out of it. So here's a 6 banger that I'm going to install to the 4 gauge wire that's in the truck. And now once I get that done, which should only take a few minutes, and mounted, then I can start working on the alarm. So that's where I'm at. Now also, when I went through the firewall, there's a few precautions that I had taken, because it was a 4 gauge Superflex wire. Do I have a piece of it laying around here? No, it's out in the truck still. Anyway, it's thick wire and it's flexible. You guys know what it is. I drilled a larger hole than necessary to get the wire through, and when I had done that, naturally I can't get to the hole all that well to make sure the edges are all clean and clear from debris. So I put a casing around 3 inches of the wire, an additional casing around 3 inches of the wire where it feeds through the hole, because we really don't want it rubbing and wearing as little as possible. Then I took some silicone and I siliconed it, not only to the wire but to the hole, getting some silicone in between there so that it doesn't move. So between all that and the fuse at the battery, we should be okay. And then naturally there's going to be a number of fuses inside, so we shouldn't have to worry about it. I only ran the hot wire because the body of the vehicle is a ground. The battery ground comes off the ground side of the battery and goes to the body of the vehicle. So why do I need to run a ground when the whole vehicle is a ground? So it would cost me more money in product. Plus, your grounds should always be as short as you possibly can make them within a comfort zone. You don't want to make them so short that they're going to be breaking off because they're being tugged on all the time, or so short that you can't get in there to fix them to something. You know, so you want them short as possible, and yet comfortable to work with. So basically that's how that is. So you make your ground short. You know, and if you gotta run a long ground, you want to almost, well, I'm not going to say double it, but you want to make it heavier, because the voltage can't get in if it doesn't get out. You follow? So let's open up that garage door so we can get all that voltage traveling out, alright, and without worrying about getting any type of ground loop. That's a whole other story, but I'm not getting into that right now. I'm going to start working on the alarm, and I was just giving you a brief on the holster. So let me turn this off for now. Let me gather some thoughts, gather some equipment, and then I'm going to go out to the truck. All right, now, here's where it takes more time. See, these are things that I'm doing that if they did, they wouldn't do this. So in a way, I'm glad I'm doing it. Because I'm taking advantage of something here. You know, those two wires, they want a constant hot. Well, I can tie them into a constant hot off the back of the fuse. It's not a big deal, you know. So finding a constant hot isn't an issue. But seeing that I brought in this 4-gauge Superflex and everything, I decided I'd put a little fuse box up under here. So this will be totally isolated from the wiring of the vehicle. So if I want to tie anything in, I can just tie it into one of these 6 fuses. And that's where I'm going to bang up or gang up the 2 wires that they want hooked up. I'll put 2 of those on one of these 10, 15, or 20 amp fuses. I'll check what they need, and I'll take it accordingly and bring it up a couple. However, there's really no room for me to bolt this up under here. So one project kind of leads to another one. But overall, by the time you're done, you're done. So what I'm going to do is, because this can't get bolted up under here, there's not enough room for me to get any screw holes. Alright, can't go against the side over here because the plate covers it, and I'm getting too close to here with the connections that are going to be live when they have a fuse in them. I don't want to start banging in over here too much because the brain of the alarm's got to go someplace. Alright, you know, and they give me room here and there that I can mount it. So, but what I'm going to do is I am just going to make a bracket, because if I do use this, I don't want to have to keep taking down this panel in order to get to a fuse. So I'm going to make a bracket so that this thing will just sit here like that, right underneath. So all I got to do is look down, under, and up a little bit, and at that point pop out a fuse. So I'm going to go in and bend some metal and make a little bracket, and then I will be back. Alright, so anyway, what I got here is I got it hooked. I got it. Got it hooked up. Number 4 comes into the fuse box. The fuse box is right there. I think you can see it, but I can't. There you go. I got 6 fuses in there right now. I got 2 10s, 2 15s, and 2 25s, I think it was. No, 10s, 15s, and 2 30s. Now I'm going to be changing those naturally. I just got to find out, for instance, on these 2 wires that they want me to hook together, and they don't want it to go to the power side, the ignition here, basically up in this. They want it to a fused. So once I determine what these 2 are, if I'm going to box them together, those look like 30s. So what I'll do is I'll put each one of those on a 30 by itself, because I haven't got a 60, and I want to make sure I give it enough supply. And now I'm going to start figuring it out. The only thing I got to do is go get a flashlight, just in case, because sometimes when you're wearing bifocals, you know, in the any cataracts or whatever else, you know, sometimes you can't see when it gets a lot of dark side. Especially up in here and up where the fuse panel is. So, and by the way, I still have the the gun on and it's not getting in the way at all, and the holster's doing fine. So, but anyway, that's where I'm at. So let me go get the flashlight and I will be right back. Alright, now what I had done was the brown wire here that fed the alarm, it was long enough to make it to the front of under the hood, but it was easier for me to snake it into the car instead of out of the car. So I cut the wire, giving myself enough on both ends to make a connection. So I'm going to solder the connection. I could put it together with a butt, but I'd rather just solder it and heat shrink. So I don't know if you guys are, hold on just a second guys. And I'm not saying that you don't know, I'm just saying for those who don't. I'm going to put a piece of heat shrink over this now that you're probably not going to, well here, I'll try to do it in front of the lens. Yeah, if it was light enough I can do it in front of the lens. A little dark down there, I can't see. Hello, hello. Okay, so anyway, the heat shrink is on. I'm waiting for the solder iron to get hot. So now what I'm going to do is, once I get enough of the wire up here, instead of just wrapping these together like some people do, they take them and they kind of just like pair them up side by side and twist them together like they were hooking up an electrical circuit in their house. You know, something like that. Where am I? And then just twist them together. But you don't want to do that because you end up with a big glob of wire. As if you were to join them together, not side by side, but tip to tip, bringing each tip up to the insulator and then twisting them together back to back, something like so. Okay. Now when I solder that, it's not going to be any thicker than the wire, and I twisted this one up this way while the other one came back down that way and twisted them together that way. Alright, twisting one counterclockwise and one clockwise. And now once I get it soldered, I'll bring the heat shrink up, shrink it, and I've got myself a very good connection. As I can get away from there, it's soldered and we're all set. So now I'll slide the heat shrink up to it like so, and I'll shrink that real quick, and that connection is done. Now another thing you may want to do, as you can see, I had my harness plugged in. If you're going to plug it in and work on it, take the fuses out of line just in case there's a problem. You're not going to blow the circuit in the alarm. Safe way to do it would really just have it unplugged. That would be up to you. Now, here's something else, if you guys can see it or not, right there. I had to tee this wire into that cross wire. That's the only place I can actually, where I can actually reach it. I couldn't get my hands up underneath to the plug, nor can I get my big ass up under there to see it. So I was able to tie in the two there. So if you had to tie in, that's also soldered. You know, and you come into it like a T, because that wire is kind of just wrapped around and soldered in. I'm going to have to tape that. Now, if you're going to tape it, which is okay, tape it tight, but then you're going to want to reinforce that tape by using a little tie wrap, a little zip tie. You don't have to use a big one, don't have to be expensive, they could be lightweight, 11 pounds or so I think these are. Alright, but what you do is you zip tie the tape, and this will prevent the tape from unraveling with the heat and the temperature changes. Alright, and help to ensure that that there is going to be protected. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to tape it and then I'm going to wrap it. Alright, after the last wrap, once I knew that the wire that I was intended to wrap with the tape and protect from shorting out from anything else, once I knew I had enough of that on there, the last wrap or two, I just grabbed a couple extra wires with it just to help reinforce it. Now you got to make sure you have enough tape on it, because if there's any little spurs, you don't want them to wiggle on through the other wire because you have them connected together. So you want to make sure you have it taped up well, and then the last couple wraps you can do, and then I put the tie wrap on it. So now I have a nice, tight, secure, taped piece. Now see, these are things that slow you down. The green wire. Now, what it says here is, if you look at the schematic, or the wiring diagram, the green wire is a negative input. So that means it needs negative. If I go to the explanation, green wire is a door trigger, negative input. It tells you to connect the green wire to the door. It connects all the lights, basically, your dome lights. Now, the diagram that came with the Omega for this year vehicle, green dome light. That's the green wire, the dome light. The color wire that it's supposed to go to for the interior light is minus white, which is a negative. Well, guess what? It's not white now, is it? That looks like purple with a white stripe to me. Where's my flashlight? Oh, sure. Now I lose my light too. Oh, there it is. That looks... oh, I'm sorry. There it is. Blue. I hooked it up to the wrong one. Asshole. Okay, the blue one. I got to hook it up to the blue one. The blue one is the negative off the switch. I don't know if you can see that or not because I'm moving the camera too, but that's the switch. So that's basically the negative wire that ties through all the switches that run the dome light. Totally opposite from the colors that they told me. So let me fix that boo-boo and get... Alright, boo-boo is fixed. Now I'm not going to solder it and tape it just yet. It's a negative, so I'm pretty safe with it. And this wire is actually a negative, the one that I boo-booed to, but it's not a switched negative. That's what the differences are. This goes right to the chassis up underneath there. Like I told you before, everything is grounded to the chassis. So if you want to hook up something that's 12 volts and you got to run a wire, just run the power line, because anything metal in the vehicle will act as your ground. You know, and try to find something as short or as close to the unit that you're hooking up so you can cut your ground to a safe short. You don't want to cut it so short that you can't work it, you know, or it's going to pull out. So like I say, everything is connected somewhere or another. So use the original. This is the natural ground for the truck. Use it. So, or any vehicle that's metal. If you got a fiberglass vehicle, it's a little different. Alright, you know, you may have to start using frame and things, but you know, you'll know. Alright, so I'll tape that up later too, just in case I need another ground. I did put the main ground right to there, but if I need another ground, I can always tie into that. So I'm going to leave these two because they're both negatives unfinished until I'm sure, because of the color change here versus there. I'm going to just leave it until I continue on, just in case a white wire pops up someplace. Okay, so we're going to continue with the wiring on the van. So, the white wire from the alarm module goes to the flashing lights, positive. So that means that this is a positive lead, pulsating output. So that's 12 volts on a pulse output. That goes to the brown wire on the ignition switch, the light switch, or anywhere within. But you know, it basically connects to the lights. Now I'm tying it in right behind the switch, as you can see. So what I did was I just kind of pushed the wire back a little bit with the strippers, wrapped the white wire around it nice and tight. Now I'm going to add some solder to it, then I'm going to tape it just like I did the other one, and then put a small tie wrap around it so that it'll prevent the tape from coming off. Alright, now as you can see, I did the same thing there. Where am I? Hello, right there. I soldered the white wire with the brown, then I taped it tight, neat, not over taping, and then where the tape ended I put a wire tie, and that'll prevent the tape from unraveling with the heat and cold from the heat and the weather and the heater on, the air conditioner on. Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's done. So now I can plug that back in and move on. Well, I was just talking with Mike, the guy where I bought the alarm, which was Kinky Ride in Georgia, and he just informed me that I don't need to use this relay in that orange wire. So I did a nice job on heat shrinking it all, but you know what? I don't need it. So, ta-da! I want to use as little wire as possible at this point. So put that over there. He also indicated to me that I didn't have to worry about any of these other wires, anything to do with the tach, because it's set to default on voltage tach. So I don't have to worry about these wires either. So let me clean up some of these wires that I don't have to worry about and get into some of the wires that I do have to worry about. Alright, well, seeing that the rain is coming and going, and totally interfering with me trying to get this done, I took an old tarp and I had 4 magnets. Well, actually I got more, but I brought out 4 magnets and I hit it to the hood, a couple to the roof, and I laid it over the door. I got my little opening here. I can drop it if I have to, but meanwhile I am covered and I can continue doing what I have to do. So let's get down here and get some of this done. Well, yeah, sure, drop the phone, why don't you? Okay, I will. Like I said, who calls anyway? Alright, so there we go. Now, the neutral safety switch. Remember I was talking about that wire that's a ground over here? I said everything goes to ground, chassis ground, and this is a ground wire, it goes to chassis ground. And I was going to leave it open just in case. Well, I need it. Because the neutral safety switch that comes off the alarm actually is just a negative trigger. So as long as it sees negative, it acts. So I'm going to tie that to that. And then I'm going to hook up a thin pink wire from the module and a heavy pink wire from the remote start thing over here, and tie it into this heavy pink wire up here. I just spent 10 minutes looking for my drop light. I got a 12 volt drop light. I let somebody borrow it. I know he brought it back, but apparently he didn't put it where he found it. So anyway, here's what we're doing now. I have 2 wires that I have to hook up to that pink wire right there that you can see that I just took off some of the casing. I have a thin pink and a heavy pink. So what I did was I split the heavy pink, as you can see, into 2. I took the thin pink and I wrapped it around one of the splits. So now what I'm going to do is take my little screwdriver and poke a hole through the center of that. And I will feed one end through one way, one end through the other, twist them together, solder them up real good. I got the big old solder iron out for this. And at that point, then I will continue with the taping and everything as I showed you I do in the other one. Alright, now because of the thicknesses of the wire here, and that's with this thin one tied into it, what I had done was I took the stranded wire, the pink ignition wire, and stripped the casing off. And then I poked a hole in it so it kind of looked like this. Casing. Then I took the other 2 and I split it this way, as you've seen. I wrapped the thin pink around this side of the heavy. I put that side of the heavy through here, butted it up nice and tight, and I continued to weave it this way, and I brought that one in the other way, tightened them up nice and tight, soldered them up with the heavy solder iron, and added a extra length of tape
Now the fitting, the solder, is only about maybe a little over, well, about a ½ inch, if that. Okay, but I wanted to extend the tape further because it is a heavier wire. And I used 3 wire ties because, again, it is an ignition wire and I wanted to make sure it's okay. So I used a little extra tape, gave myself a little bit more wrap and length, and used 3 wire ties. Okay, well, so far we have everything as you see here. This is the only thing wrong with some of these auto start things. So everything's tied into the ignition, the wiring, the harness, the starter, blah 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 up there with the heavier wires. Hooked up to the brake pedal back there, so that'll shut down, disengage when it hits the brake. Safety neutral switch is hooked up. Hot and grounds are all hooked up. The 2 hot powers together as they wanted are hooked up. All the wires that were needed on that plug are all hooked up. You know, I was looking for a wire. I mean, my light. I got a 12-volt drop light around here someplace. Plugs into the cigarette lighter plug. Well, had somebody borrow it. He brought it back. I don't know where he put it. And I know he brought it back. So anyway, I'm using a flashlight. But so far, except for just soldering these 2 wires down here, which is the reverse trigger on the door locks, I'm thinking I'm done. So what I'll do is, once I get this done, I will plug in and I gotta plug in the shock sensor and hook that up, and then decide if I want to use it or not. And I think I'm probably gonna, I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I want to put it as close to the actual, I don't know. They tell you to strap it on the steering column, but I'm not used to just strapping these onto a steering column. Yeah, I may bolt it up over there, right there in that spot, right there. But we'll see. Meanwhile, let me get these soldered up. Alright, now I haven't tried it yet because it's just getting too late. And I am beat. Everything's hooked up. The wires are there. I started tying them up into a neat little package. I still got to shrink them in. But before I tighten everything up into a neat little package, I want to make sure that's going to work. I just want to get them up out of the way for now. So that's where we're at. Have I tried it yet? No. I'm going to pick up some things, put the side kick plate back on, and pick up a few things and just clean up a little bit, and then I'll think about giving it a try. But for now, I just want to do what I gotta do here.